Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Eye of Africa. I am your host, Aina Fadina. Today, I am excited to have Olympic medalist Daryl Homer with us here today. Daryl, thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
So how's it been? You went to Rio, you won silver. How did that feel?
Yeah, I've worked 15 years for that medal, so it kind of felt like that moment you always hear in movies about when you're about to die, your life flashes before your eyes.
Yeah.
But for me, kind of getting the medal, all the hard work I'd been through and all the things I'd been through up to that point kind of flashed through my mind. And my mother, my grandmother, my sister, my close friends were there. And it was something that everyone back here in New York City kind of really championed as well. So I just had it was really impactful to me, and it was a really powerful moment for me, and hopefully I can top that come Tokyo.
So let's talk about transitioning back to normal life. How's the transition been? It's been a few months now.
Yeah.
Has it been like, okay, just prepping for the next season, or have you kind of like just taking in everything and just relaxing before, you know?
Yeah, I think the conventional knowledge or conventional logic when it comes to the Olympics as a platform is kind of that you have a platform a year before the games and like 6 months after, right?
Right.
But really what I wanted to do is kind of remove myself from that way of thought and think about long term how I could build a legacy and use my platform and the medal to really impact those around me. So I've been doing a ton of like strategic thinking, a lot of traveling as well, and just kind of realizing that what that helped me realize was I'm from the Bronx, obviously, but that there are global implications to my story and my successes, and that I can inspire people globally. So hopefully in Senegal, I've kind of made some plans to kind of touch down and speak to some people down there, and maybe work with some kids down there for a little bit while I'm there, and then kind of just integrating that stuff into my travel schedule as a whole, and finding a way to kind of add a little bit of depth and meaning to this medal for other people as well.
Right, that's amazing. And you had the chance to meet the president. You were at the White House with all the...
Two times. Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
We met in the last games as well, yes.
Oh, that makes sense, yeah. So you were there with the Simones.
Yes.
You know, I always say the American athletes, specifically the Black athletes, like they turned Rio upside down. Yeah, how was that whole experience of meeting the president, the first Black, not meeting him, but you met him already.
One, Rio was just unbelievable for I think all athletes won, but women, if you think about
Absolutely.
that, I think if the women had been their own country, they would have been fourth in the medal count. So that's ridiculous in its own, right?
Wow.
And then obviously for Black athletes, with everything going on in America, it was really amazing to see people step up, myself included, and kind of just like just show that there can be a beacon of hope even in the worst times. So that was awesome. And then you leave that and you go to you're being honored. So the best thing that for me was like kind of being honored at Yankee Stadium. So I'm on the field. I'm from the Bronx, by way of the Virgin Islands. And just kind of being on Yankee Stadium, kind of proud and everything. You look like a politician, right? And then you leave moments like that. And I went down to the Caribbean and spoke to some kids in St. Thomas and the French Caribbean as well. And then came back and met the president. So, it was just a really good kind of gambit of different experiences and I'm blessed to be able to do that. But meeting the president is always something super humbling. And on top of that, we also met John Carlos and Tommy Smith. So two of the guys from '68, the track and field guys. We met those guys as well. Met John Carlos at the White House, and then randomly, my barber called me like, "Hey, he's at the shop across the street." So we had like another 2-hour conversation in the barber shop and just hung out. So. Just kind of like, it's great to meet these people and kind of you realize you stand on the shoulder of giants, right?
Absolutely.
And you want to build and elevate and hopefully leave the same impact.
And I think you have the right way of thinking, because you're thinking, okay, what legacy do I want to leave? Because you understand that I am standing on the shoulders of those that came before me.
Exactly.
That's amazing. So you were born in St. Thomas.
Yes.
And you moved to the States when you were about 6?
When I was 5, yes.
Oh, when you were 5.
Yep.
So do you remember St. Thomas?
So the funny thing is I don't really, and everyone clowned me because I hadn't been home in like, I think, how old am I now? Probably 9 years or something like that. So when I went down this summer, like, you have to come back again. So I'm going back in December.
Nice.
It was great. I think the cool thing about St. Thomas is it's kind of like an inflection point for the U.S. and the Caribbean, right? So, I'm speaking to all these kids, and I'm like, well, who are your favorite athletes? And they're like, Usain Bolt, and no American kid would say that to LeBron, Steph Curry.
Right.
So that was funny. And then but you also realize at the same point, they have very similar issues.
Right.
To kids up here, the violence in the communities, the lack of options. So almost all the kids told me they wanted to be an athlete, versus like, hey, I want to be a doctor, And,
right.
I really pressed them to say like, hey, what do you want to do outside of sports? But, the responses kind of dulled down at that point. So you realize that our diaspora community is connected in so many different ways, which kind of ties back into what I was saying about global implications for a local story.
Absolutely, absolutely. And being a young migrant, or just being a migrant, I'm sure you saw the implications on your mother as well too, and your family members. I think for most people that come from different countries to America, sports is not an option. And I think having your mother giving you that chance to fence.
Yes.
What opened her world to that? Yeah,
so fencing for me, I really lucked into it. So I was very studious when I was young, and very curious about things. But fencing, I came across fencing in the dictionary one day. And there was a picture of the guy in the silver mask and the white uniform. And I was like, hey, Mom, I think I want to try this. And she was like, okay, whatever, right? It kind of blew me off. But throughout the years, it kept coming up in multiple different times. Like the Parent Trap, like they did the cool fencing scene.
Yeah.
Huge fan of Mask of Zorro. And I think it culminated in 2000 when there was an ad for AT&T, a spec ad, I believe. Two African-American males who later would become kind of like my mentors, so to speak, fencing for a cab, right? And it was super cool. And I was like, Mom, remember I wanted to try that? And then she looked in the yellow pages because that was still a big thing back then. I actually started that club that fall. And then from there, I was seen as talented a couple months later, and I was paired up with the Olympic coach as my first coach. And that was pretty much how I started. But to your point, like you said, Caribbean, African parents, generally it's like, no, get your education. And I think that's why I can articulate my goals so well, is because my mom kind of put that emphasis on me from a super young age that there had to be a backup plan, and that sports is not the be all end all.
Right. Because even for us, even if you did think it was an option, it was like soccer, football to the rest of the world, or basketball or American football. Like fencing is just something you just don't see a face that looks like yours.
Yes. And I'd say that there are more of us than you would think, but still not enough, right? And that's something that I'm passionate about, and hopefully I can help change globally, though, because this was like one of the most humbling experiences of my life. I won a world championship medal in 2015 at the World Championships. I was the first person ever to do it, right? And my American teammates were amped, but the guys from the Congo and Senegal and Nigeria were beside themselves. They had these are guys I'd never met before. They had the iPads out. They were like my coach is standing here trying to take pictures. They were pushing my coach out of the way trying to get pictures. And I was like, whoa, this is deep. And then you realize in a sport, representation matters. So even in a sport like fencing, we have our own preconceived notions about it in America, but globally it's always Europeans that win, right? So in America we have a perception, but globally it's always Europeans that win. So when the guys from Hong Kong or China or see another guy win, they're like, whoa, you know what I mean? This represents all of us. It means we can all do it too.
Absolutely. And for Rio, I think there were a lot of misconceptions about Rio and Brazil. I remember when we met, you were saying how the refugee team was one of the most impactful experiences that you would take with you. Why was that?
I think that the amazing thing about the Olympics is that you can kind of network and connect with all of these different athletes from all over the globe, right? It's very, everyone's very chill. It's a very good spirit. But you all kind of come from, everyone has their struggle, and everyone thinks their struggle is so bad, and the media kind of plays up those struggles as well. But when you read about people who are actually impacted by, there are two stories that stuck with me. So the refugee team, I think Marcina Udra, I forgot, but she was swimming. She was on a boat, first of all. She's a swimmer. And I think something happened to the boat, and 13 people were about to drown, and she swam for 3.5 hours to save everyone. Like that's like a type of story that's like real world implications, and you know, it's rooted in something that's societally going on today. And then another story is a friend of mine, Clarissa Shields, two-time Olympic gold medalist in boxing for the U.S. Right? She's from Flint, Michigan. Now we all know what's going on in Flint, Michigan. Right. So while I'm at the Olympics, you know, I'm just trying to find ways to relax. So I watched her T-Rex documentary from 2012, and obviously the Flint, Michigan water stuff came out, what, 2015?
Yeah, it was 2015, yeah.
So she was living in Flint between that time span. So she was drinking that water as an Olympic gold medalist. So that type of stuff's like, whoa, you know? And there were even scenes in the documentary where her mom's like, hey, we have to pay the water bill. And now you know, like, you're paying for dirty water, but at the time, they're just like, yeah, I need to make ends meet and pay this water bill so we can have running water, you know? So it's stuff like that that really just blows your mind, you know?
And there's also a sense of, I guess, community that you find in these people as well, too, from various backgrounds.
I would say it's community, and then I'd say the Olympics is literally a meritocracy, right? There's like, you know, maybe after people win medals, it's like, oh, I want a medal, you didn't type thing. I don't think anyone who's a cool person would do that, but if you go and you're all Olympians and you're all going there for the same thing, and you're all representing your country, and you're all super geeked out of your mind and excited, you know? And that's like the Olympics.
Yeah. And how did London prep you?
London was like my first foray into like a big global event, multi-sport, you know, all the distractions that come along with that. And, you know, I think I did well. I wish I had done a little bit better. I think I could have medaled there, but I think I did well. You know, I lost by 2 touches for the medal round at 22. Yeah, it was my first time being around all those big athletes. And, you know, fanboying out a little bit, and you know, my first time even being exposed to a lot of the recovery techniques, and just kind of like being immersed into the whole U.S. Olympic Committee culture, because there's U.S. fencing culture, which has changed dramatically, but the Olympic Committee culture is like all about excellence and all about winning. So the U.S. fencing culture is like, okay, or even any local federation's culture is going to be based upon where they rank in the world, right? So it's like, okay, we did pretty well by winning X amount of medals. The U.S. Olympic Committee is like, we're winning gold in everything, you know? And so it's a different kind of criteria. And eventually I think the sporting federations are going to catch up to the Olympic Committee in terms of the way they think, but it takes time. You know?
Right. So for you, I always say with everything that we do, it can be challenging to stay motivated and to stay inspired. What keeps you going?
I try not to do anything in vain. So even with media stuff, right? There are times you can feel like it's just like you're smiling and you're just answering the same questions over and over. So I try to control the narrative I want to put out. One, and then I think 2, like I just know why I'm doing it. So it's something for Rio, you know, for London, I'd say it was just me, this is cool, right? For Rio, it's like, I realized I can be a motivational figure in our community. And then for Tokyo, hopefully if I make Tokyo, it'll be all about legacy and what I've built and kind of launching a different platform outside of sport, right? And just kind of crafting those narratives and figuring out ways that you can constantly go up. And I think the good thing is that I realized that I think most people want it to go like that. And as an athlete, you realize really.
It's a plateau.
So, I mean, the motivation stuff is just like kind of, you know, having creative outlets and realizing that fencing is great, but it's not the be all end all for me. So I guess it's motivation to keep striving is how I look at it. So I'll keep fencing as long as I can keep striving in it. And when I feel like there's nothing left to get from the sport, then I'll go into something else and strive in that.
For me, when I think about fencing, for me, it's one of the most beautiful sports.
Yes, it is.
But when it comes to technicalities, I'm just like, okay, are they fighting with a sword or what's happening? You know, I kind of go right into my African mode about this. So can you just explain the technicalities?
Yeah, so there are 3 different weapons. It's foil, saber, and épée. Épée, the entire body is a target, so it's the slowest weapon. You don't want to make a mistake and get hit. And there's no right of way. In foil, the target is the front and the back of the torso, and you only get hit with the point, like an épée. And in saber, the one I do, it's slashing. It's more like Zorro, right? The one I do is way, way more aggressive. So the target in mind is anywhere from the waist up. And there's a complex right of way, so whoever's moving forward, you generally always want to have the attack, you always want to have the initiative. But if you do attack and you're blocked, so you try to hit me and I block you, and we hit together, it's my point because I have 1 priority. I blocked you, and then we go together, boom, right? If you miss, then I have priority and I can start my attack. But pretty much you always want to initiate and move forward. And in terms of the best skill sets for the sport, You have to be pretty physical, but it's also very cerebral, it's very technical, it's a lot about controlling your emotions. So I think that makes it ideal for kids, especially in the inner city, to kind of be able to have an outlet to focus and to be disciplined and also to learn to control their emotions.
Right. You have your technique. What is your technique called again?
The flunge, you mean?
The flunge, that's it, the flunge, yeah.
So I actually took that from one of my fencing mentors, Keith Smart.
Okay.
Kind of elevated it a little bit. So everyone's like, oh, yeah. This dude does it all the time.
Yeah. So what exactly is that?
Yeah, it's just, we have a standard move, which is the lunge.
Okay.
And, that's what everyone does. And the flunge is just like me flying in the air a little bit, seeing the target, and then going. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, wow. If you could talk to a migrant mother, what advice can you give to, just young families who moved from whatever country and they're in America for this new dream?
Yeah. I think that my mother would probably be better suited to answering that. But I think the main things are just, encourage creativity. I don't want to get too deep into it, but I think we're in a different generation now where it's a new economy, really. So I think the old rules of study hard and keep your head down aren't really as effective now, right? So I'd say, encourage creativity. Allow your child to find their passion and then support as much as you can.
Right.
And obviously, you keep the guardrails on a bit, but you take them off a bit when it's appropriate too.
Of course. I look at what's happening I call it, like you said, the global sort of diaspora narrative that's happening now. I think there's a unified voice that Africans, Afro-Americans, Caribbean Americans have now. What are your thoughts on what's going on in that?
Yeah, and I'm really excited for it. I get excited when I hear about the different things people are doing, or I find ways that we can support each other and continue to grow and build. Because I think that's ultimately how we'll better the situation for everyone. So I'm really excited. But I think it's awesome. I think it's colorful. And the more we can kind of build and grow together, the better.
So the Bronx.
Yes, the beat boogie down. The boogie down.
What was it like growing up in the Bronx?
For me, I did grow up in the Bronx until I was 17, but I was never there.
Gotcha.
I was leaving for school at 7 a.m. and coming home at 10 p.m. from practice.
Wow.
And doing that, and Sunday was like a rest day. Right? But the typical like, hey, let me go outside and play with my friends thing didn't really happen past 13. I'm kind of rediscovering it now. As an adult, and I'm seeing the beauty. So I grew up on White Plains Road in like 213.
Okay, yeah.
So there's the beauty of that culture. It's like very African. It's very Caribbean.
Yeah.
There are a lot of Muslim immigrants coming in there now.
Yeah.
So it actually reminds me a lot of like a Fort Greene before the gentrification.
Before gentrification.
And I'm like, whoa, this is cool.
Yeah.
So you kind of, and I think some friends of mine are from that neighborhood, so we've been talking about like, how do we bring business up here? How do we change the perception of this place? Because it's really beautiful.
Yeah. So let's talk about the medal.
Yes. Oh, yes.
What do you do with it?
So I have my medal with me actually.
Yay! Oh my God, I get to touch it.
Yes, of course.
Wow. Oh my goodness. It's quite heavy.
Yeah. So it's everyone makes that comment. Yeah. I had no idea how heavy it was going to be. So.
This is beautiful.
Thank
so
you.
when they put this on you, what did you, was it like OMG?
I was just like smiling. I never smiled. I was like, I never smile, but no, it was awesome.
It's pretty amazing.
No, thank you. Appreciate it.
Did your mom put it on yet?
My mom has put it on.
Oh, yeah. She's like, it's partially hers.
Yeah.
Like,
so it's funny. She has like all my medals from up until I was like 24, but there are like 3 special ones I keep for myself.
Yeah.
She's like, let me get the. I'm like, nah.
You should put it on right now.
Oh yeah.
So you're like, okay, it's like, see, wow.
Yes, my baby.
Yeah. And it's. So how do you mentally prepare?
Yeah, so I have a sports psychologist, and we go through our own like meditations and speak once a week, and I'll do the meditations once a day before the trainings and everything, but and competitions. But I think mainly it's just being around family and friends and people who genuinely are rooting for me and who I genuinely root for. And through that, like I kind of get a lot of energy and just can kind of go out there and put everything in perspective. Because I think a lot of times the biggest fears you have when competing are kind of rejection, and if you know those people are gonna love you no matter what, good.
Well, so now that we talked about rejection, what does rejection and failure mean to you?
I'm like a dramatic guy, so losing any match, I'm just like, oh, life's over, and but I think rejection looks like just failure to me, and I have very high standards, so it's like whatever I put my mind to, I want to reach, and I mean I've learned to kind of take to kind of expand that, because I used to be super myopic with goals, so now it's okay if the end goal is to win a medal in Rio, this stuff is not as important, but it's important to kind of lead into that, right? I've learned to kind of look at life more as a journey, just versus everything needs to be a result, but I do have big milestone moments I like to reach.
What sacrifices do you make in order to achieve?
So I think that's the cool thing, right? When I was younger, I didn't really consider them sacrifices because I was just having fun doing what I was doing. So a sacrifice would be not being able to hang out with my friends. That was the main sacrifice, right? When I was younger, right? And feeling that I only had fencing friends because I was always with my fencing friends and stuff like that, and I was able to be very social. But as you get older, I'd say you put in so much work for the sport when you're young that the sport starts to work for you as you get older, right? So all those dinners and movie nights and stuff like that I missed when I was younger are being repaid now, right? So
when you're not fencing, what are you doing?
Taking meetings, strategizing, you know what I mean? Reading a lot. I take a lot of walks, I listen to a lot of music, working out, and just trying to be with friends and family.
And do you feel pressure being the face of fencing globally?
No, I don't feel pressure by it. I think that it's not something I'm going to seek out, right? But if I grow into that, and I think that's the funny thing. I think that in a sport like fencing, because it's so small and growing so quickly, everyone wants to assign one person as a face. There can be multiple faces and multiple people, and different people are going to represent different things for different people. You know? And that's how I always look at it. So instead of trying to compete with other people, let me just represent what I represent and represent it authentically, and I'm going to do well.
Right. With fencing, I don't know if you're able to share this, like when you think about the monetary, I guess it's compensation the right word? Yeah, but like your return on investment, how does that, that translate for you?
So for me, I'm lucky, I'm able to, I have sponsors, I have partnerships with different organizations, so I'm able to kind of create a good life for myself, right? Or I'm in the works of creating, I can kind of scale it as I get older too, right? So a good life when you're 18 is not going to be a good life when you're 26, that's not going to be a good life when you're 30, but I can theorize and scale it. I think for most of the athletes, it's very, very difficult to kind of figure out how to monetize, how to stay in the sport for a long time, which is a problem we're trying to solve now, and maybe that's something I can help solve right along the way. But it definitely is, I would say, a struggle for most of the athletes to kind of put together this intricate plan on what they want to represent, how they want to represent it, what partners they can find to help them amplify, and then on top to monetize all of that, right? So it's very tough, I would say, and it takes a lot of thought, and it's a full-time job. But my goal is always not to just live for now, right? So it's how can I live off of what I'm doing now 10, 15, 20, 30 years from now, right?
Because that's the thing about the issue with a lot of like when it comes to sports and athletes as well too, in terms of like how do you plan for the future?
Exactly. So I think it's it's financial planning, right? So obviously realizing these checks aren't going to come forever. So that needs to go somewhere and stay safe, you know what I mean? And then two, it's just like up here, kind of seeding things into culture and seeding things to people who can help you actualize those goals eventually as well.
So what does identity mean to you?
Identity is everything. I think I pride myself on being authentic. I pride myself on, on staying true to me and owning who I am. So identity is everything, I think.
And with the labelings of society, do you let that, affect the trajectory of who you are as a person?
It's funny you say that because what I've had to realize is that media is great, right? But media is going to construct its own narrative. And if you live into the media narrative, it can help you or hurt you. But I'm always the type of person where I kind of want to construct my own narrative and build my own things. And I had to realize that, instead of running to you create your own movement and then they can amplify it versus you just kind of letting other people run with the stories and feeling, I don't want to be represented that way, So that's I hope that answers the question.
No, it does. As you go along, as you move forward, as you continue to grow and develop who you are as a person, what would you tell young individuals or just anyone in general on pushing forward and achieving their goals?
Yeah, I think most important to me is I always start, when I'm problem solving anything, I start with what my core mission is, right? And then I think critically about ways to get there and people I can work with to get there. But I always start with me. Here's my core mission. Here are things that I can do. And then I think critically about how to articulate that and how to formulate that as a plan. You have to find what you're passionate about because people can tell you what you're passionate about or tell you what you're good at. And that might not necessarily be what you're passionate about. And it's going to show eventually.
Yeah. That's a good one.
And I think a third is don't be afraid to be broke. No, don't be afraid to be broke. So if you're really like, if I'm broke, I'm gonna have to cut back on dinners, and it may be a little bit tight, but I'll be able to do what I want to do. And long term, if I have the right plan, that's gonna help me get to where I want to be financially, or socially, or or help my community, or help my family. Then that's what it is. Yeah. But for so long, we're afraid of like, if I'm broke, and sometimes I've been the same way in the past. Like, if I'm broke, or if I don't do this, I guess that takes me one more thing, right? And don't let other people define what successful is to you.
Absolutely.
And that's what you have to just define success for yourself.
Absolutely. So I know as kids or children, as we're kind of growing up, you want to identify with a face that this is what I see myself achieving, and that person is doing it. Who are those people for you?
Yeah. So again, I was lucky growing up. My coach was the Olympic coach for 2000, 2004, and 2008. My first game was in 2012. So Keith Smart went to 2000, 2004, and 2008. So I was able to kind of watch him through those 3 games and really kind of take in like how he performed and, take advice from him. He was #1 in the world at one point. Ivan Lee was another one of those guys. And then Peter Westbrook, he medaled in 1984. So those 3 guys were like, these are 3 African-American males who have done the same discipline I have and kind of done it on a really high level in the world. And, it's funny, sometimes I'm like, am I better than them yet? But it's just great to be in that conversation and to have them as kind of people that, standing on the shoulder of giants.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
And what does gratitude mean to you?
I am someone that always tries to give thanks and realize that, the stuff that I'm doing, I wouldn't be able to do if other people didn't open the door for me. At the same point, I think sometimes people want too much gratitude, but I think that from people in our community, I've always felt an immense amount of gratitude, and I'm always super thankful for the support I've gotten, or just people who've helped me in different ways along the way. And there's so many different people that help to make a successful life, And I think sometimes we forget that. No one person is responsible.
Absolutely.
One person is responsible at the end of the day, right? But everyone else there's so many other people that help. Little decisions kind of guide long-term things that come back to life.
So in terms of training, you do yoga, meditation, diet. What would you put in terms of, we're always thinking about things as 100%, that has to be 100% of X, Y, and Z. How would you diversify and quantify, the impact of those different things? And also psychology is important as well, too. I have the fencing portion of it, and I've been doing the fencing portion of it for a long time, but I'd say that's like 50% of my success, right? Just what I do in the gym, what I do with my coach one-on-one, and the amount of focus and all the hard work that goes into that. I also have the physical aspect of it, which is with my strength coach. That might be another 25%. And then, if we're talking about the mental aspect, it's also like, my strength coach doesn't like it, but I go on bike rides and stuff like that for like an hour, just around the city. And stuff like that just kind of relieves a lot of pressure from me, and it's something I really enjoy doing. Or, I'll go play basketball with a couple friends, or, the meditation, or, reading. Just like stuff like that is actually really good for my mental state too, and just keeps me I have to keep learning. Because if I ever feel like I'm kind of stagnant, then everything kind of falls apart. So. It sounds expensive.
Fencing?
Yeah.
Yeah. The sport as a whole, it's not as expensive as you think.
Because I feel like basketball, just pick up a ball and, you
mean all those things I just mentioned?
Yeah.
But basketball players on a high level are doing those too. I think that.
But from a young age though, is that why there's.
And remember, so I think that when I was younger, it was just fencing I was doing.
Okay, but is that expensive too?
Fencing as a whole is expensive, yes. So I was lucky that my coach very early on just didn't charge me for it.
Oh, I see. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So.
But it's, I think people are probably topping out at $18K a year for fencing lessons at a club, and then probably another 12 to 15K in terms of traveling.
Wow, 33,000 a year?
Yeah, but that's one side of it, though. There are also programs that kind of subsidize that.
Yeah. Wow.
But obviously, those programs need to scale much larger.
Absolutely.
To be able to support,
Yeah.
big network of people.
Wow.
And that's if you want to be super high level in the sport.
Yeah.
And you're starting that way. A lot of people aren't like that.
So you went through a prep school and that kind of helped you sort of like...
No, I got into a private school independent of fencing. My school did not have fencing in it. So I was just fencing on my own on the national circuit and stuff like that at the club.
Jesus Christ. Yeah. Kudos to you.
To moms. Not
fair enough. Kudos to moms and everyone that's put you this far. And thank you so much. I appreciate, I know you're like jetting off to our training, so I appreciate you making this happen. And nothing but the best and success, and hopefully we'll connect soon.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Eye of Africa. Thank you so much to Daryl Homer, and until the next one, take care.